life has a somewhat cruel way of pacing itself. The better it is, the less of it seems you have. And I just can't shake the feeling that in the past 6 months I have lived more than I had up to that point. This is why there is a 5-month gap between my uploads, and why this thing will take a month as well, most likely. But 6 months, it's lots of time, and I refuse to stop digging into my backlog. So take a seat and enjoy some of my finds. At some point in my life, I have realized that I am kind of done with Far Crys and Far Cry likes. We only have so much time on this blessed earth, and liberating outposts is far cry from the best way to spend it. To be fair, there is one Far Cry that I would like to give a fair shot, but it's not this one. So why did I bother? Well, I kind of felt like playing a caveman game, and this is the only semi-modern one that I could think of. Sadly, the primalness of Far Cry goes only the spoken language deep, as beyond that, everything is almost impressively formulaic. Yes, you can now tame a pet and use an owl as a scout drone, but you're also liberating outposts the exact same way you did in 2012. If I were to point to the fatal flaw, it would be the map. Not because it is the exact same one from Far Cry 4 and that's just lazy, but because Ubisoft, when faced with a setting that severely limits the amount of guns and items to grind for, instead of making a smaller sandbox to sustain the pace of gear progression, decided to lock skills and weapon packs behind yet another arbitrary layer of progressively more exotic resources to gather, just to force you to run around the fucking thing. 7 out of 10 Far Cry, 2 out of 10 Caveman game. Just like one of your favorite games, it is Polish and bases itself in our folklore, but in a far more abstract and esoteric sense than The Witcher. It is not a world of dark fantasy, but songs and nursery rhymes come to life. It's bizarre, colorful, and so full of references that even I, a true blood Pole myself, felt like tons of stuff was going over my head. The map itself is open, but not the expected more or less flat plain with cities, but rather a pleasing network of paths, glades that change as story moves forward, and unique structures, multiple of which you will be able to spot at all times. I was legit surprised by the amount of overarching systems devs managed to squeeze here. There is morality, skill tree, equipment, not to mention the open world. That's quite a bit to fit into a 8-hour game. Unfortunately, combat is severely undercooked, and story alongside its presentation can fuck right off. It deserves no more and no less than 21 out of 37. There is no point in wasting anyone's time with this one, so I'll be brief. It is impressive, a legit milestone in evolution of video games, a true achievement of creative progress of the medium, how devs took the much more than solid gunplay and mechanics of Battlefield 4 and managed to conjure up such a steaming pile of shit. I give it 4 hours that you will never gain back out of the rest of your life. I really wish this was just Hardline, with no massive multiplayer component. This campaign is a cancerous growth too. The setting has potential. I really enjoyed going through the marshes or shooting my way through a mall during a hurricane. I liked how you can arrest guys instead of shooting on sight, how gunplay is faster, focused on pistols and shorter range in general. I even like the TV series episodes this thing got chopped up to and collecting evidence. But every single thing about this is just half-assed. I truly believe that just Hardline could have been lots of fun. A cult classic even, but that would require it to be its own thing, getting some decent writers, putting some weight behind its concepts, and most importantly, getting rid of the battlefield. I give it Need for Speed Shift out of Need for Speed as a concept. For reasons far beyond my comprehension, the world seems to have learned some kind of lesson from the Great War. No matter who or where you ask, it's seen as a great waste of everyone's time and more of a natural disaster rather than a conflict, which stands in a stark contrast to its sequel. This is shown in depictions of both conflicts. Sensational portrayals of the Second World War started the day it ended, while the OG proves to be a tough nut to crack, especially in the realm of shooty bang bang video games. The few attempts we had seems to mix trenches with sci-fi or fantasy to both lighten the mood and provide some fun boomsticks. Battlefield 1 throws that intro your way, promising a serious tone and gunplay that simply fucks. But once you reach halfway through the first mission, there is no grit left. It turns all kinds of action movie. Thankfully, gunplay still fucks. You run around and smoke crowds and Turks with prototypes and experimental weapons that never seen combat, which is great. Most of them we never got in any game before. The campaign is short and runs out of steam as you approach the end of it, but if I were to recommend one campaign in the most confusing-ass trilogy I ever played, it would be this one. I give it a Necrovision out of Verdun. Treyarch's road to success is quite straightforward. Spend 15 years manufacturing shovelware so you can dig up classic action movie IPs and create adaptations that capture a commonly agreed points before they were not that good anymore. This hill is as good to die as any, but what puzzles me is why the collective gaming hive mind cares so much about Treyarch's output. And I'm not trying to be mean, I like when my countrymen make a splash, but both Terminator and Robocop are uninterested in even the tiniest amount of deviation from their source material. Source material that dates back to the 80s, times when most people buying games were not even stored in the balls yet. But then again, finding your player base in older gamers that have seen those mechanical men in the silver screen and the later generation that grew up on those same movies but on TV might have been the move after all. I doubt there will be a follow-up to 30-in-1 Game Collection Volume 2. So, Robocop Rogue City is first and foremost the motion picture brought to life. Every location from the movies that you can think of has been recreated in painstaking detail, and you get a nice hub area of Detroit filled with side objectives to explore to your heart's content. Every memorable quote is referenced, every iconic moment relieved in some way. The shooting itself is unlike anything aside of maybe the other Robocop game. You are a tank on legs with suitably heavy and sluggish movement alongside expected resistance to small arms fire. Peacefully strolling through levels and smoking goons does not sound like too much fun, and on itself it is not. What makes it fun is the way every single thing explodes when even grazed by a bullet, people included. The feedback to every shot is fantastic, and the amount of cannon fodder you'll be turning into a pulp at all times keeps you relatively engaged long enough for the game to run its course. You also get skill points to spend on unlocking and upgrading abilities, and the game knows how to pace itself with sections spent in the police station and roaming the hub world. So where's the catch? I don't think there is one. Not a big one, at least. Gunplay works fine in confined spaces, but once you're under the sun, it turns a bit shit. Poor enemy AI and variety drag entire thing down, but that's about it. It's perfectly fine. A must-buy for €10 on a sale at some point, or, simply speaking, a 7 out of 10. I often fool myself into thinking that with passing years, my taste in video games turns more refined as I experience more and more of them. Unfortunately, truth is that deep inside I am still that same kid that spent unreasonable amounts of time torturing Vice City police debt just because blowing stuff up is fun. And Just Cause 3 is entirely built around this sentiment. It's a destruction sandbox to its very core, and a very good one at that. At its base is a physics system capable of making Goliath-sized structures crumble in gorgeous explosion animations. At your disposal are feathers, grenades, selection of guns, rocket launchers, exotically behaving projectile explosives, cars, planes, helicopters, tanks, mechs, everything available literally on call. Mix it up with grappling hook, parachute, wingsuit, and a fun, light summertime vibe, and you got yourself one of the most fun interactive toys I have messed with in a hot minute. I found it really interesting how Just Cause 3 provides the player with tools and means of explosive expression while still nudging him into the fun zone. Upgrades are bought not with abstract and meaningless XP, but with score in corresponding challenges, extorting proficiency and understanding of available tools. Playing this game as a shooter is pointless, as when you are in process of capturing enemy base, baddies will be respawning endlessly until you blow up what needs to be blown up. And as experimentation can only bloom in low-risk environments, even if you die in process of destroying a base, all the progress you made is kept. Death is of pretty much no consequence. All that conditions player to look at task at hand not like another thing of a to-do list, but opportunity to mess around with all the fun toys given by the game. Nutter tools out of Leave Me Alone. On the face of it, it looks like a standard affair. You go around, collect resources and kill some zombies, and while that's technically true, State of Decay creates an important distinction between every other game I have played and itself. You are not playing as a guy, you are playing as an entire camp. You are responsible for setting up and upgrading the camp and outposts, managing relations with other groups and recruiting new members. You are not a specific member of your team, but you are free to possess anyone to do some scavenging or quests or to explore. But be careful, survivors do have their own inventory, stats, levels and traits, but also each gets only one life. Once he's dead, he's gone. The thought in the back of your head that your favorite little guy may not come back from the grand adventure you are taking him for, and if he doesn't, it is all your fault, is intoxicating. It recontextualizes the way you approach this seemingly generic open-world game and made it fresh in a way that I haven't experienced in a long-ass time. That being said, unfortunately, State of Decay also sucks dick. This was the first game of Undead Labs, published as an XBLA title on the Xbox 360 in 2013. Combination of those 3 cursed runes is enough to create an entire video essay worth of things wrong with it. It's ugly, buggy, unbalanced and junky as fuck, but there is no need for such cruelty, as Microsoft quickly purchased the studio and squeezed a sequel out of them, and it corrects almost every wrong of the original. It feels weird to suck a game off with such enthusiasm, but State of Decay 2 is fantastic and unlike anything you played before. Play it instead. Out of 10. Tarkov without the annoying shit about Tarkov. That's how this game was advertised to me by some random guy on the internet. I know very little about Tarkov, but one thing that I got from 12 Hours a Slave is that this is not my kind of game, but a stylized indie that takes the concept of extraction shooter and turns it into a single player and is €5, why not? The loop is as follows. You drop into a backrooms inspired map, go around looking for cash and stuff for quests, kill some guys for more dough and extract before the atmosphere gets too hot to handle. As time goes by, more dangerous guys will spawn, so don't be too greedy, as if you fail to extract, your money will get cut by 90%. This weight combined with semi-realistic gunplay, where guns can jam if too hot and need to manually cycle around into their chamber after reloading, lead to butt-clenching gunfights. Arching over all that is a pretty neat weapon customization system and permanent upgrades to HP and stuff that provide a feeling of progression, as well as a set of quests for all maps that lead to a key for you to acquire. What it opens, I will not tell, but it's always what you desire, as well as gates of hell. Speaking of hell, there is a nearly refund-worthy flaw in this title in form of randomly spawning extraction points on impossible to memorize maps alongside lack of any navigation tools. Later levels are a bit better as there are more open spaces and characteristic rooms, but finding exfil or coming back to one you have seen before is infuriating at best. Hey, developer guy, give me like a compass thing to a extraction point that I have already found on the map, alright? Out of 10. I really like Sega racers. There's something about them, like at the very core, that I don't think ever came back once they decided to only make bad Sonic games. Parking Garage Rally, unlike other retro racing games that are clearly inspired by specific Sega title, is interested in emulating Sega's spirit itself, meaning creating a unique set of driving mechanics and building an arcade experience around that. Granted, drifting to build up boost is nothing new, but the way it is done here tickles me in places I can't really discuss in public. First of all, slow car fast is more fun than fast car fast. You are racing around a parking lot, so you won't be breaking Mach 3, and flooring it in a straight line gets you nowhere. The fun in those slow cars comes from drifting. Tracks are filled with tight corners, and nailing a slide, crash team racing style just feels great, and if you keep it long enough, you get a boost. Now the fun part is that if you start a drift while boosting, and you keep it long enough to get another one, they stack, and it's glorious. hilarious. I am still far from mastery of this game, but track memorization aside, there are little things that make you approach drifting differently from any other game. Like the fact that sliding makes you stick to road, which is more useful than it sounds, or that if Arch allows, breaking a curve into multiple drifts may help you pick up the pace a bit. This and probably much more let you make crazy chains, and it's just simply fun. Sega Rally 2006, out of F355 Challenge. I adore the original Xbox. I love the way it looks, the way it's built, what it's capable of, its vibe, its attitude, and the quirkiness of its library. Brute Force is one of Xbox's titles of particular interest, as it has been published exclusively on the console by Microsoft itself, as one of Big M's attempts at making a system seller. Not unlike Halo, meaning that if it was a smash hit, you could have gotten like 7 Brute Force games, a couple of brown and grey edgy titles on 360, a open world 8th-gen reboot, and entire studio built around it, like my mind just keeps racing. But could it have been? At its very core, Brute Force is a really snappy feeling third-person shooter. For a console game from 2003, before Resi 4 and what it started, that's really impressive by itself. It's built around co-op, with 4 characters that have unique abilities, levels with quasi-scoring systems, and additional objectives that encourage repeat playthroughs. But it nicely translates to single player. The other guys follow you around and do a relatively decent job at staying alive, sometimes even at being helpful. You are free to switch between them, use their abilities as you please, but outside of Dude Bro that dual wields and Lizard Person with health regen, it's hardly useful. There's even a system of squad commands. Completely useless, but there is. Alongside a 2-weapon limit with 1 slot permanently occupied by each character's signature gun. But this feature can fuck off. So, to answer the stated question, I don't know. I guess not. Voodoo Joe out of Blinks 2. First thing that I feel is important to establish about Dead Cells is that despite its presentation, this game is not a Metroidvania. It is a roguelite, and those things exclude each other unless you are a robot and your name is Fight, and even then you have to squint quite a bit. That being said, while I tend to get tired of the way roguelites generally approach pacing and content distribution, this one does both really fucking well for what it is. By the nature of the beast, it will take you lots of time to grind for some decent gear, but the way Dead Cells hints at and unfolds cool things sometimes wakes you up from the monotonous roguelikean cycle of trying over and over again. And none of this is new to the genre by any measure, but is done with such care, intent and taste that when combined with combat system that just simply fucks. Even I, one that has mostly given up on the entire genre, can't help but give it 20 or more out of 31 hours. This game handles the exact way you'd expect by looking at it, but Sniper Elite 3 is persistent on making you play it the correct way with dedication of a toddler dead set on checking that wall socket. You drop in with a sniper rifle, a SMG and a pistol, but SMG has ridiculous amount of spread, pitiful range, comes with less ammo than your rifle, and from each dead crowd you get like 3 bullets, making it useless at anything but covering your ass in a pinch and making a bunch of noise. Silenced pistols available are silently lethal only when pointed directly at the skull, so your only decent close range option is reliant on somewhat careful approach. And your sniper rifle? Your sniper rifle is pretty cool. You get tons of options, including not only the model but custom parts and scope patterns, so how about you use it, big guy, huh? There is no classic stamina bar, but similarly working heart monitor that has to be kept below 80 in order for you to be able to properly focus while taking a shot. But if you are willing to meet the game halfway, it will be waiting there for you. Most importantly, Sniper Elite proudly abuses the rule of cool, pulling a long-range shot, getting that X-ray camera and puncturing some German cojones just feels amazing. If this doesn't sell you on the game, hell, the entire series, nothing will. Furthermore, Sniper Elite implements more of a loose approximation of stealth. Many times I have shot a Jerry in a plain sight, moved like 10 meters and game called me a ghost. Crowds have goldfish memory, and detection does not depend on the superior German intellect, but the greater than 3 amount of unmasked shots taken. If you happen to get spotted, you are given a clear indication of where enemies have seen you last, and thus where they will be looking. Also, whenever anyone gets suspicious or aggravated, they will get automatically marked and visible to you at all times. You are given crazy amounts of information. You know when and where to move, as well as how far can you push your cover before it gets blown. Sniper Elite 3 is not about waiting for hours to take that perfect shot, but rather about constantly moving around, confusing the living fuck out of some Nazis, selling you that fantasy of being a badass stone-cold Hugo Stiglitz character, and especially once combined with a literal boss battle at the end of each level, Sniper Elite 3 is far more arcade than you might expect. I give it a V2 out of Bumper 8. And that's it. That's all I have for today. I'm not entirely sure what the next one is going to be about, but stay tuned and take care.